For over 20 years, we've waited for Elbaf, the land of the giants, the very kingdom that Usopp had sworn he would visit one day. Dorry and Brogy first mentioned it way back during the Little Garden arc. Recently, the Straw Hats have arrived at Elbaf, and the story arc isn't all about giants drinking mead and swinging massive weapons. Elbaf has become the stage for revelations about the sun god Nika, the ancient history of the world, and the true nature of Loki's supposed crimes, as well as a full-scale invasion by the God Knights that has thrown the entire nation into chaos. We've also met with Gaban, the left hand of the Pirate King, and we've watched Robin reunite with Jaguar D. Saul after 22 years. We've also learnt the heartbreaking truth about King Harold's death, and we've seen Imu personally possess Gunko's body, transforming Dorry and Brogy into demonic puppets using the same technique that Imu used on Rox D. Zebek at God Valley. In this retrospective video, I'm breaking down everything that's happened in the Elbaf arc so far, from the Straw Hats' bizarre arrival in Rhodes' diorama prison to Luffy's fateful encounter with the chained Prince Loki. We'll also be talking about the devastating attack by the God Knights and their nightmarish powers. I'll also explore the ancient text known as the Harley, the tragic backstory of Harold and Loki, Gaban's sacrifice, and how Elbaf's fate connects directly to the events of the God Valley incident. So without further delay, let's begin my Elbaf arc retrospective. The Straw Hats' arrival at Elbaf was anything but conventional. 2 days after the chaos at Egghead, the crew found themselves aboard the Great Eric with the giant warrior pirates, sailing towards the legendary kingdom. But after a night of heavy drinking, half of the crew woke up somewhere completely unexpected. Nami opened her eyes with a pounding hangover, dressed in clothes that she didn't remember putting on. She quickly found Usopp in a similar state as the two of them fled through what appeared to be a massive castle filled with giant animals. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, and Chopper were in a similar situation, wearing traditional Elbaf clothing with no memory of how they got there. Usopp initially theorized that they'd somehow become giants based on their surroundings, but when Luffy crashed into what he thought was the sky and shattered it like glass, the truth ended up becoming clearer. The Straw Hats weren't transformed into giants at all, they were trapped inside of a massive diorama, a building block kingdom created by a giant who'd captured them in their sleep and dressed them up like dolls. The culprit was Road of the new giant warrior pirates. This guy had some serious issues with Hajiruddin joining the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. He resented his captain being subservient to Luffy, so when his giant raven Mugen brought the Thousand Sunny to him, Road decided to turn the Straw Hats into his personal live dolls. He wanted to keep them trapped in his little kingdom, ruling over them as the Sun God. It is ironic that he calls himself the Sun God while having captured the Sun God Nika, and honestly this is going to become a recurring theme on Elbaf. Everybody here seems to want the title of Sun God. The Straw Hats fought their way through Rhodes' temple guards, which included a giant snake, 3 giant mice, and a massive raven. Luffy dealt with them in Gear 5th while Nami used the schematics of the diorama to navigate an escape route. Eventually, Gerd and Goldberg showed up to collect Road and deliver some well-deserved punishment. Zoro made it clear that if Usopp hadn't intervened earlier, Road would already have been dead. Gerd even gave Zoro full permission to kill Road if he ever pulled something like that again. Here's where things get interesting. While escaping the diorama, Luffy's observation haki picked up something powerful. He heard a voice calling out from below, giving him goosebumps intense enough that he split up with the rest of the crew in order to investigate. This rash decision would lead Luffy to the most dangerous giant in Elbaf. Before continuing with Luffy's journey, you need to understand Elbaf's unique geography. The entire nation is built around the legendary treasure tree Adam, the same wood that Frankie used to construct the Thousand Sunny. The tree is so massive that it creates 3 distinct levels of civilization. The underworld sits at the base of the island. It's a dark realm where criminals are sentenced and dangerous beasts roam free. Above that is the Sun World, which rests on the lower branches, where most of Elbaf's population lives in villages connected by rope branches and branch routes. At the very top in the canopy lies the Heaven World. The giants can travel between levels using devices called Sava and artificially created rainbows made with tools called painters. These rainbows become become solid enough for ships to sail on, which is how the Great Eric ascended to the Sunworld after the crew escaped Rhodes Castle. Ripley, one of the giant residents, later revealed something crucial to Frankie during a tour. Adamwood isn't rare because it's hard to find. It's rare because harvesting it from Elbaf without being caught is nearly impossible. The giants guard their tree fiercely. She also showed him a severed branch where Hogan Village used to stand before lightning struck and fire forced them to cut it off. Fire and lightning are Elbaf's greatest weaknesses. The tree that gives them everything can just as easily be their doom. Returning to Luffy deep in the underworld, he finds a blindfolded giant chained with sea stone. The giant immediately senses Luffy's presence despite being blindfolded, demanding to know who had entered his domain. Luffy introduces himself as the future Pirate King. The giant responded with equally grandiose claims. He declared himself Loki, the sun god who would bring about the end of the world. He revealed they were in Elbaf, which he called the land where all wars originate. Loki carried a world government bounty of 2.6 billion berries. He'd been imprisoned for 6 years, bound to the treasure tree Adam with sea stone chains that neutralized his devil fruit powers. Despite claiming to be the strongest giant in Elbaf, he needed help escaping. Loki tried to bargain with Luffy if freed that he'd destroy a single pirate crew on Luffy's behalf. When Luffy didn't seem interested, Loki revealed he had massive pets in the underworld and survivors from crews who'd picked fights with Elbaf. He threatened to have them attack. Luffy responds by being himself as he instantly tamed Loki's giant beasts, shocking everyone present. The creatures reminded him of his training on Rusukaina during the time skip. Now when the human survivors mentioned Shanks, Luffy's attitude shifted immediately. He started demanding information about the Emperor. Loki made a critical mistake here. He mocked Shanks, calling him a coward. Luffy immediately went gear forth and threw a devastating punch. Loki barely dodged and quickly retracted his insult, but mentally noted that he would kill Luffy the moment that he was free. Still, Loki made it clear that he wouldn't share information for free. A deal was struck in secret. Luffy would find the key to Loki's chains, and in exchange, Loki would tell him where to find Shanks. Luffy was sworn to secrecy about the meeting. When Luffy rejoined Gerd and Goldberg, they asked what he'd been doing in the underworld. Luffy's terrible lying actually worked in his favor. He looked so uncomfortable that the giants assumed that he'd experienced something traumatic and dropped the subject entirely. Back in the Western Village, the giants gathered for a feast in honor of the Straw Hats. The atmosphere was celebratory with toasts raised for helping their people defeating Kaido and Big Mom, as well as the Straw Hats being true friends to the giant race. The eldest giant in the world, Jarl, at 408 years old, arrived riding a massive savar, and Luffy immediately noticed something disturbing. Jarl had a sword literally stuck in his head. The old giant chuckled and explained that his helmet had stopped it from going all the way through, though the blade had cut dangerously deep. During the feast, the giants debated the nature of the sun god. Some argued he was the god of liberation, others insisted he was the god of destruction. A few claimed that he was the god of laughter. The disagreement got so heated that an actual fight broke out. Jarl explained the source of the confusion. Elbaf possessed an ancient religious text called the Harley. The problem was that nobody could properly translate it anymore. The knowledge of the ancient language had been lost to time, leaving only interpretations and guesswork. According to what they understood, the world had been destroyed twice in the past, and Nika was associated with both events. Jarl made the political implications clear. Regardless of what Nika represents, his presence signals great change. Those in power fear his arrival and work to erase his existence from history. When Luffy asked if Loki was a good person, the giants reacted with absolute horror. They shared the story that before Loki was even born, King Harold prophesied his own death at his son's hands. Shortly after Loki's birth, he killed the family's lucky horse. Elbaf was then plagued with natural disasters and the death of their queen, and they all blamed it on Loki's curse. By age 10, Loki had made the underworld his personal playground, taming ferocious beasts that terrified adult giants and then unleashing them on the village. The worst crime was killing King Harold, and Jarl's head wound had come from trying to stop Loki. Shanks himself was the one who finally ended Loki's rampage 6 years ago. The giants added one more detail that grabbed Luffy's attention. Shanks had visited Elbaf Elbaf recently. Zoro noticed Luffy acting strange and pulled him aside. When Luffy confessed about his secret deal with Loki, Zoro warned that everything Loki said had to be lies since everyone in Elbaf despised him, but Luffy's desire to see Shanks was too strong. He promised to beat Loki up if he was lying, and they decided to retrieve the key. Nami joined them, claiming she wanted to help with her navigation skills, but after she asked Road about the treasure in Orist Castle, we along with Zoro immediately understand her true motivations. Before the feast could properly begin, Robin made her priorities clear. She needed to find Jaguar D Soul first. Brooke had given her a haircut that made her look exactly as she did 2 years ago during the time skip. Dorry and Brogy understood immediately that was how she looked when she first met Saul on Ohara. The entire crew rallied around her, with Gerd guiding them to the owl tree in Warrior Springs. As they approached, someone came running with devastating news. Saul had collapsed, but Robin stayed calm as she knew something that the others didn't. Sure enough, Saul's collapse was an elaborate prank. He'd been lying there pretending because he didn't know what to say after all of these years. When Robin got close, he tried to scare her, just like their first meeting, but it didn't work. She'd expected it. Saul picked Robin up and brought her close to his face, and his words hit her hard, as he comments on how she looks just like Olivia now, like her mother. The conversation turned to Vegapunk's broadcast. Saul explained that message was Ohara's legacy finally reaching the world. The scholars, Olivia, even his own sacrifice that day, none of it was in vain. Vegapunk had risked everything to preserve what Ohara died trying to protect. Robin asked about the visible scars covering Saul's body. These were remnants of Admiral Aokiji's ice powers. Saul explained his survival. When Aokiji froze him solid, he thought that was the end, but the fire that consumed Ohara also saved him. The flames melted the ice as he fell into the ocean. Robin interrupted him, getting angry about the lies that they spread about her. She didn't want to focus on the dark things anymore. Instead, she asked him to praise her for surviving, for staying alive despite everything, for making it all the way here to see him. Saul's response broke her. He wrapped her in the gentlest of embraces, as much that his massive arms could manage, telling her that she was magnificent, strong, and incredible. He thanked her for not giving up. The walls Robin had built over 2 decades crumbled as she admitted that she'd missed him so much, wondering if she'd ever see him again. Most of the Straw Hats were openly weeping as Luffy stood watching with the biggest, most genuine smile. Saul took Robin, Chopper, Bonnie, and Lilith to the Owl Library. The building held every book that the Giants had collected after Ohara's destruction, all the knowledge that the world government tried to erase. Robin was moved to tears seeing her homeland's legacy preserved. The library's chief librarian, Biblo, possessed the Iku Ikunomi, which allowed him to gigantify the books so giants could read them comfortably. His power was essential for making human-sized text accessible. Saul then revealed the Harley itself. He explained that all of Elbaf's myths and legends about the sun god had been inspired by interpretations of this ancient text. That's why everyone had different ideas about what Nika represented. The book was written in 3 chapters, each depicting a different world. Saul noted something crucial about the legends of Nika scattered throughout the world. They consistently depicted him laughing to a particular rhythm. He imitated the beat as it matched the heartbeat Luffy produced in Year 5th. Robin began reading. The first chapter described a unified land where mankind touched a forbidden sun. This triggered a catastrophic reshaping of the world. The text used religious language. The land was shattered by an earth god, and a great serpent wrapped around the globe. The chapter ended ominously, and they will never meet. The second chapter described an era of dreams, war, and expansion. Different peoples dreamed, conflict spread, and mankind killed the sun and declared itself god. The seas rose, flooding the land. This corresponded to the Void Century when the ancient kingdom was destroyed. The chapter also ended with "and they will never meet." The third chapter described the present age, a broken world remembering a promised day. It foretold the return of the sun, the end of separation, and the reunion of what was divided. Unlike the previous chapters, this one ended with hope, and they will surely meet. Meanwhile, Frankie discovered an ancient mural carved into the treasure tree Adam during his tour with Ripley. Though dismissed it as children's drawings, the mural dated back to the Void Century. The imagery depicted multiple races races working together: giants, minks, lunarians, samurai, fishmen, and others fighting as allies. On one side, an alliance of races fought together; on the other, Noah carried life through catastrophe, while a skyborne weapon resembling Uranus brought destruction. Energy flowed throughout the mural in a continuous cycle. The Harley reframed the world's history as the story of a world broken twice, first by the splitting of the land, then by the flooding of the seas, and the third world was the chance to undo both and to destroy the Red Line, to reverse the flood and restore the world as one piece. While searching for the key to Loki's chains in Orist Castle, Luffy's group encountered a magic circle on the throne room floor. A voice called out, claiming to have been waiting for Luffy. Road panicked, thinking that it was a ghost. A massive axe came flying, cutting off Road's escape route and causing him to drop everyone. On the throne sat a man the giants knew as Yasan, a human resident who'd lived on Elbaf for over 20 years. The man revealed he was Ripley's partner and Colin's father. Colin, the young giant boy who rushed through Elbaf's streets announcing the Great Eric's return. This was his son. Yasan commented on how much giant blood Colin had inherited, making it impossible to hold him in his arms. He admitted that marrying a giant meant that his wife and child would outlive him, but he didn't regret it. Love was free and mixed races were more common in the world than people realized. When Luffy mentioned his plan to free Loki, Yasan's demeanor shifted. He warned Luffy to be careful. He asked what Luffy would do if the worst happened after freeing Loki. Luffy's answer was simple. He'd beat him up and chain him back. Yasan smiled, saying that he'd heard that kind of answer before from another reckless captain who ignored his warnings. He revealed the location of the key by having Road push the throne aside, exposing an empty treasure room below. Everything had been looted years ago, but the key to Loki's chains remained. Not even thieves wanted to free Loki. Yasan challenged Luffy to take it by force. When Luffy reached for it, Yasan moved with impossible speed, coating the key in armament haki and slamming it down on Luffy with devastating power. The fight escalated. Yasan brandished twin axes and unleashed Yasutakeru, a flurry of strikes so powerful that Zoro had to intervene to save Luffy. The clash destroyed part of the castle. Yasan's eyes showed approval. He noted that Luffy had found himself a good crew. When Luffy activated Gear 5th and both he and Zoro prepared to fight seriously, Yasan suddenly yielded. The key lay on the ground next to them. He had tested them and found them worthy. Road tried to reveal Yasan's true identity, but the man stopped him. As he left, he told Luffy to visit him if Elbaf was still intact. The implication was clear. He expected trouble. Elsewhere in the village, Oimo shared the legend of the Roger pirate's left hand. During a mission to get Roger to a hospital in the mountains, they'd been surrounded by hundreds of enemy pirates. One man defeated them all with just 2 axes, destroying every tree on the mountain in the process, as he earned the title of Mountain Eater. This man had lived in Elbaf for over 20 years, and his name was Scopper Gaban. 2 hooded figures then approached the guards at Orist Castle. When the guards refused to reveal Loki's location, one figure unleashed rapid projectiles resembling bandages that wrapped around a guard like binding snakes, causing burning agony. These were God Knights, Gunko, whose Oro Oronomi allowed her to create arrow-like constructs, and Figaland Shamrock, commander of the Knights and son of Figaland Garling. They tracked down Loki in the underworld and offered him a position among the Knights. Loki refused violently, declaring that he would never become garbage like the world nobles. Gunko mentioned that agents they'd sent to gather information on Loki had all disappeared after reporting a giant crow, which was Mugen. Loki commanded a giant wolf to eat them. Gunko subdued it effortlessly, wrapping her powers around its neck and dangling it in the air. When she offered to spare the wolf in exchange for Loki's cooperation, Loki told the wolf to die in peace. He would channel his grief and rage into destroying the world. Shamrock drew his sword, with the blade transforming into a 3-headed hellhound called Cerberus. We learned that a mythical Zoan fruit had been fed to the sword itself. Shamrock left the beast to kill Loki, while he and Gunko departed on a bird construct to plan their next move. Loki's voice wavered as he admitted even he couldn't survive an attack from something like this. Before leaving, Loki demanded to know Shamrock's connection to Shanks, as they looked identical. Shamrock revealed the truth with aristocratic disdain. Shanks was in fact his younger twin brother. Both were born on God Valley to a red-haired woman during the native hunting competition. Though Shanks once returned to Merijo, he ultimately rejected his birthright and chose to live in what Shamrock called the filthy lower world. world. This revelation connected to something crucial from Shanks' past. Shanks had possessed a Shallow's Covenant tattoo on his left arm. The Sea King, the Lord of the Coast, which bit off Shanks' arm while he was saving Luffy, it had inadvertently freed Shanks from the world government's range-limited control. Whether if Shanks knew this would happen remains unknown, but losing that arm severed more than just his flesh. The Covenant system operated on 3 levels. The Shallow's Covenant allowed control only within a certain range of Merijo. The Depth's Covenant granted immortality and enhanced power, but it enabled control from anywhere. The Abyssal Covenant was reserved for 13 specific individuals chosen by Imu. Harold would eventually receive a Depth's Covenant. Shanks escaped with only a Shallow's Covenant. The difference determined their fates. Shamrock and Gunko arrived near the Walrus School and summoned reinforcements through a magic circle. 2 more knights appeared, Saint Summers of the Shepherd family and Saint Killingham of the Rimoshifu family. Summers possessed the Iba Ibonomi, allowing him to generate invisible thorny vines. Killingham had consumed the Ryuryunomi model Kirin, a mythical Zoan that enabled him to put people to sleep and manifest their nightmares as physical creatures. The knights turned their assault into a twisted game. Killingham put the children at Walrus School to sleep one by one, then materialized their worst fears into reality. The assignment Angie had given earlier, asking children to draw what they feared most, became the blueprint for destruction. The children had drawn Loki destroying the world. They drew Nika as a fearsome god. They drew the wolf Fenrir, storms, ghosts, and the serpent Jomunganda. All of these nightmarish creatures walked across Elbaf, attacking anyone in their path. They were referred to as MMAs, and they had no concept of death. Killingham could revive them endlessly as long as the nightmare halls remained open. Summers wrapped the sleeping children in invisible thorns. Anyone who tried to touch them would be stabbed, and the children still asleep began walking toward Branch Route 8, straight toward the fire that Loki had started from the underworld. The fire was Loki's doing. Still chained, but with 1 sea stone shackle remaining, he demonstrated that he wasn't powerless. He struck the treasure tree Adam with Ragnar, his sentient weapon, calling down lightning that ignited the southern forest. He threatened to destroy Elbaf entirely if the Straw Hats didn't remove his final restraint. Zoro had already been removing the chains, but deliberately left 1 ankle cuff locked. He didn't fully trust Loki. When Hajruddin and the new giant warrior pirates arrived, having learned the truth from Gerd, they begged Luffy not to free him. Hajruddin called Loki an untrustworthy manipulator who had betrayed everyone who ever trusted him. But the chains were already off, and despite appearing near death moments earlier, Loki stood up, grabbing Ragnar with menacing intent. Saul reached the sleepwalking children and tried to grab Ylva, only to then be stabbed by Summer's invisible thorns. The firefighting Savar crew mobilized to stop the fire, but a nightmarish creature knocked him out of the sky. Robin attacked Summers with her powers, drawing blood and breaking his body with Clutch. Summers was a god knight. His wounds began healing. Robin resorted to using a decoy to lure Summers off the branch, forcing them both to fall toward the underworld. Summers saved himself by using a vine, but Robin had ended up buying some time. The children kept walking toward the flames. Ronja, one of the giant girls, found herself separated from the group, walking on one of Gunko's arrow constructs towards a deadly drop. Summers gave Jarrell an ultimatum: destroy the Walrus School and the Owl Library or Ronja dies. The other giants begged Jarrell not to destroy the school. The library contained the words of people from 1,000 years of history, but others argued that the children's lives mattered more. The real problem was whether complying meant becoming the world government's servants. With 1 second remaining before Ronja fell, Jarrell made his choice. He ordered Angie to burn the school. He ordered the library to be destroyed. Summers laughed and demanded the books be left inside to burn. They wanted to destroy Elbaf's history and culture completely. Gaban arrived at the children's location. He had cut Summers in half entirely, and Chopper had followed to understand how he had damaged an immortal knight. But the moment Gaban announced himself, Gunko made a move. She threatened Colin, Gaban's son. By using his observation haki, Gaban foresaw what would happen if he attacked. Gunko's strike would be fatal, as he couldn't save Colin in time. Scopper Gaban, the left hand of the Pirate King, surrendered without a fight. Gunko shot him full of arrows as he fell toward the underworld, leaving his son screaming his name. As Gunko prepared to deal with the remaining Straw Hats, something strange happened. She suddenly experienced a lost memory in involving Brooke. Before she could pursue this connection, a greater force intervened. Imu made contact telepathically with all three God Knights. Imu was furious about the delay. Mary Jo was burning. The world government needed the giants immediately. Imu possessed Gunko's body remotely. Her eyes transformed to match Imu's distinctive appearance. Her hair grew longer. Speaking through her, Imu declared that they would personally demonstrate the true power of a god. The giant parents who arrived to save their children were stabbed by Summer's thorns. Imu unleashed a massive burst of Supreme King Haki, knocking the children unconscious and dropping several adult giants. They then manifested devil wings, a demonic tail, and a trident. Drawing a magic circle, they summoned cannons to blast away the remaining conscious giants. Dorry and Brogy arrived to confront Imu. Brogy grabbed hold of the possessed Gunko, while the others moved to free the children. Imu remained unfazed. They calmly explained what would happen. Brogy would kill Jarl, then he would announce that he and Dorry were the new kings of Elbaf. From a summoned grimoire, Imu pulled a massive shotgun and blew off Brogy's hand. No blood came out of the wound. Imu drew a magic circle beneath Brogy's feet. They explained the contract being forced upon him. In exchange for a portion of his lifespan, he would receive immortality and phenomenal strength, but he would lose all reason and logic, obeying only Imu's commands. According to Imu, only demons were the proper form for life to take. Brogy sank into the ground and emerged transformed. His new form towered over the other giants, larger even than ancient giants. He had devil wings like Imu's possessed form, and his severed hand still functioned despite the wrist being gone. The loyal giants begged their captain to return to normal. Brogy swatted them away like insects. Dorry was transformed next, then several other giant warrior pirates who got too close. Those who resisted had no choice but to flee from their own demonized comrades. This technique, the Domi Reversi, was the same power Imu had used on Rocksteady Zebek at God Valley. In the underworld, Chopper arrived with the injured Gaban after using Guard Point to cushion their fall. The giants finally revealed Gaban's true identity to Luffy, the left hand of the Pirate King, the third strongest of the Roger pirates after Roger and Rayleigh. Gaban woke up and immediately corrected them. He considered himself to be the second strongest, not third. Chopper explained the situation above: Imu possessing Gunko, the knights rampaging, Dorry and Brogy being transformed, children being held captive, the school and the library burning. The entire nation of Elbaf was under attack. Everyone felt Imu's Supreme King Haki reaching all the way down into the underworld. The pressure was overwhelming even at a distance. Before they left to counterattack, Gaban shared crucial information. The God Knights weren't truly immortal. The key to defeating them lay in Supreme King Haki. Back when the God Knights kept trying to reclaim Shanks, the Roger pirates would attack them with Supreme King Haki until they gave up and left. Gaban then told Luffy there was someone else in the crew who could use Supreme King Haki. Sanji assured that it was him, but Gaban corrected him, stating that it was Zoro. But Zoro had no idea that he possessed it. Luffy knew all along because he could sense it off of Zoro. He was surprised Zoro hadn't realized. Gaban chided Zoro for his obliviousness, stating that he needed to learn conscious control if he was going to keep supporting an emperor. Zoro could only apologize sheepishly. Jinbei meanwhile used Fishman Jujutsu to deal with the spreading fire, saving children from walking into the flames. In order to understand Loki's supposed crimes, we have to understand his father. King Harold wasn't always a peace-loving reformer that Elbaf remembered. As a young prince, his immense size, strength, and royal heritage made him arrogant and violent. He spent his youth with Dorry and Brogy, living the life of a warrior without consequences. One day Harold sailed past a kingdom where he saw a female giant named Ida being used as a circus attraction. Believing she was being mistreated, Harold destroyed the town and took her. Ida slapped him. She demanded that he turn around and go back. The townspeople had saved her life when she washed ashore, and she was actually working at the circus in order to repay their kindness. King Harold's assumption that she needed saving was exactly the arrogance that gave giants a bad reputation. Her words humbled him. He helped rebuild the town. He fell in love with her and she with him, and Ida would transform Harold from a brutal warrior into a king who wanted his people to trade with the world instead of pillaging it. Ida eventually gave birth to Hajruddin, but because she wasn't born in Elbaf, she couldn't officially marry Harold or become queen. She accepted this and lived in a nearby village. Harold later married Estrid, a woman from the north who studied geomancy. Estrid was obsessed blessed with omens and signs. When she gave birth to Loki and saw his unusual eyes, she was repulsed. She called the infant a cursed monster and ordered the kingdom to be told he was stillborn. Then Astrid threw her newborn son into the underworld. Loki survived as he climbed the treasure tree Adam back to the sun world. His mother's horror only grew. After she fell ill, Astrid prophesied on her deathbed that Loki would one day kill Harold. Every misfortune that befell Elbaf from that point forward was blamed on Loki's curse. Years passed as Harold's diplomatic efforts succeeded. The giants joined the Marines for the first time. Public opinion improved on the giants. Harold planned to build ships that would let giants sail freely to other nations, spreading their culture and trade. But then Ida fell ill. Elders from Astrid's hometown had poisoned her. No doctor could save her, and she refused to drag King Harold away from his mission. She believed that she would get better, but unfortunately she died on a snowy day. Harold, Hadrudin, and Loki, who was imprisoned for burning down Brewer's village, mourned her. Loki had burned the village in grief and rage. The elders who poisoned Ida came from there. King Harold knew the truth but said nothing. Shanks had been completing missions for the God Knights, on track to become a full knight himself, but he went missing before the promotion. King Harold was chosen as his replacement. The 5 elders took Harold to the empty throne room. There he met Imu. They bestowed the Depths Covenant upon him, upgrading his Shallows Covenant. Harold became immortal and even more powerful. Imu ordered him to return to Elbaf, create an abyss portal, and only then would his wish be granted. King Harold complied. Then came the real order: turn all of Elbaf into a country of warriors, create a fleet for the navy. King Harold refused. He would let his people join the Marines voluntarily, but he wouldn't force his entire country into servitude. Imu revealed the truth. The Depths Covenant meant that Harold couldn't disobey. His body began moving against his will. King Harold realized the plan had always been to enslave the giants. The world government never wanted Elbaf as an ally. They wanted soldiers. King Harold ordered his guards to chain him to a pillar. He called for Loki and Jarl. The massacre of Orest Castle was about to begin. When Loki and Jarl arrived, Harold was already stabbing his own men. His body was moving on its own. Imu's orders were changing his thoughts. King Harold begged them to kill him before he killed everyone else. But his wounds kept healing. The Covenant's immortality had taken hold. He revealed the world government's deception and told Loki to eat the legendary devil fruit passed down through Elbaf's royal family. It was the only thing powerful enough to kill him. He wanted Loki to end his suffering and tell the people what really happened. Then Harold's personality completely changed. He massacred the surrounding gods, and he announced himself as a vassal for the Great One. No one would leave the room alive. King Harold stabbed Jarl in the head with a sword that he had once given his old friend, remarking that he could have it back now. Jarl somehow survived the attack. Loki ran for the fruit. Shanks and Gaban arrived to help hold Harold back, but Harold's immortality and Supreme King Haki made him nearly unstoppable. Shanks tried to reach his old friend, but King Harold now felt superior to all other life, as he was intoxicated by his immortal body. The legendary devil fruit was guarded by Ragnar, a sentient weapon that had consumed a squirrel-based Zoan. Previous giants had tried to eat the fruit, but Ragnar never chose them. When Loki reached it, Ragnar attacked. Loki fought the weapon, breaking his own hammer in the process. Eventually, Ragnar decided to let him eat the fruit. Loki's transformation granted incredible power. His new form was shown only in a silhouette, but he confronted Harold and severely injured him, temporarily restoring his senses. Harold acknowledged that Loki could use Supreme King Haki. He admitted the Covenant had influenced his thoughts during the fight, making him feel like a god. Whatever the fruit was, it was powerful enough to counter Imu's control. With moments left before the Covenant retook him, Harold made his final requests. He wanted Loki to finish him. He revealed he knew about Brewer's village, that Loki had burned it because of Ida. Though it couldn't bring her back, Harold was moved by how much his son loved her. He asked Loki to get along better with Hadrudin. He said Loki had what it takes to lead Elbaf. Loki told his father that he would never forgive him for making him do this. Harold said that he loved him. Loki unleashed a massive lightning attack through Ragnar, infused with Supreme King Haki. Harold shattered to pieces. Loki murdering his father was out of mercy. The accursed prince had freed his father from Imu's enslavement at Harold's own request. With Dorry and Brogy transformed into demons, the MMA nightmare creatures rampaging, ruling, and the God Knights directing all of this chaos, Elbaf now faces its greatest crisis. The children remain trapped by Sommer's invisible thorns. Imu continues possessing Gunko's body, commanding the demon giants to kill Jarl and establish a new order of war and ruthlessness. Robin fights to save what remains of the Owl Library. Gaban recovers in the underworld with Chopper's help. The new giant warrior pirates prepare to return to the Sunworld. Jarl refuses to flee, declaring that warriors never run from battle, and Loki, the prince everyone believed was a monster, may be Elbaf's only hope. The truth about Harold's death has been revealed. Loki didn't murder his father out of ambition. He freed him from Imu's control because Harold told him to. Every crime attributed to Loki needs to be re-evaluated. The giants spent 6 years hating a man who sacrificed everything to protect them from the world government's enslavement. Shanks stopped Loki's rampage not because Loki was evil, but likely because he understood something about the situation that the giants didn't. Yeah, this is pretty much everything that we have on the Elbaph arc so far. This arc also does deliver a complete flashback of the God Valley incident, which I have talked about in a separate extensive video, so do check that one out after this one. But what are your thoughts about the Elbaph arc so far? What revelation shocked you the most? Do you think Loki will join the fight against the God Knights? What are your thoughts about what his devil fruit actually is, and what's the deal with Gunko's lost memory involving Brooke? Do continue the discussion in the comments, and lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this one, and I look forward to seeing you in my next One Piece video.
A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.